Humphrey Ker back on the show. It's been a while. I did see Humphrey very recently. If you watched the YouTube vlogs when I was away, kind of peeping in the background in the fan zone, or I mean, I can't really peeping. He's a much taller man than I am. I love the tour. Humphrey, what did you make of it? Because it was a very surreal and cool experience.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I think it was, as far as we're concerned, pretty much an unqualified success. Obviously, Miles's injury is not ideal, but I think that you could do that just as easily in Nantwich as you can in San Diego. So, yeah, I mean, it was a tremendous way for us to kind of reward all the US fans that have been so supportive of the club over the last couple of years by giving them an opportunity to come and see the team. And I met people that had driven 16 hours, things like that, to try and get to games, which is wild. That's Dover away and back a couple of times over, and that's just going one way. So that was amazing. The guys had an incredible experience, which I think is, as much as anything, was an incredibly useful thing. This is a really close squad, and for them to go and have all these experiences together, especially for sort of Max and Aaron James and some of the younger guys, and Fozzie and a few of the older boys have done overseas tours before, but for a lot of them they haven't, and they just had a great time, which is really great. I think that's going to stand us in good stead when we're having a tough time in January, when it's wet and cold and horrible. The experiences they've had together here now will bring them a bit closer.
Including a 2-hour delay. I mean, that's going to get you ready for wind and rain and Andy Cannon pouring water down Elliot Lee's. But that was crazy. I know you weren't at that Philadelphia game, but you must have been watching it. It was 4 a.m. for us in the UK. We were just thinking, please end so we can go to bed.
I know. I was following it vicariously from a Taylor Swift concert, which is, I think, a traditional place for Wrexham fans to check their phones during Shake It Off. I was like, are they going to get back on the pitch? Listen, it's very unideal. That's probably the one part of it that we would love to have had done differently. Miles aside, obviously, in terms of just the final preparation, but all these things with Kev Mulholland in particular, kind of drawing up a program and a plan for the minutes that everybody gets and the amount of time they spend on the pitch and all that kind of thing. I'm very confident that that will not have too much of a bad effect. And I know over the last couple of days they have been resting up and recuperating from the jet lag, and they'll be back in training tomorrow and Thursday and Friday to get ready for the game on Saturday.
And quickly then, before we maybe dissect a couple of the games, what was the situation around? So in LA, we saw the picture. Ryan's obviously got his star that many people have seen. Rob got his star. Was that a real star, or is that a temporary?
I think that was a temporary one. So I gather that there's a man on Hollywood Boulevard who has a little star, and he can knock together a name, so you can then place it and photograph it. And I think that was that was a tribute to the co-chairman.
It was a very nice tribute. So the first game of the tour then, because we're going to throw it ahead to MK Dons, but first game, 51,000 basically, if we're going to round it up, which I'm definitely going to do, in Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill as a place, probably never would have gone there, a lot of Wrexham fans. It just didn't seem a place you would end up. I mean, I've got Wimbledon away coming up. UNC campus wasn't on the radar before this summer. I thought that was a great starting point, and I know you were there in the fan zone doing autographs and things, but it just felt a really great starting point. That.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful campus. Those big American colleges are kind of extraordinary. That we don't have any equivalent to that in the UK in terms of just the scale of them. We trained at the sort of UNC men's and women's soccer stadium, just the 10,000 seat stadium, very very small, that was attached to an indoor American football field, and right next to the baseball stadium, which is 20-something thousand, and one of the two basketball stadiums, which is another 20-something thousand. There's a bigger one where they play their actual proper games, and all that was kind of quite mind blowing. It was very hot. It was very sweaty, but it was the game itself was kind of Great introduction to what the tour was going to be in terms of an extraordinary number of Wrexham fans there. I think we had more Wrexham fans than Chelsea fans there, which is bizarre. Chelsea put on a great performance. I think 5-0 slightly flattered them. But, all these things, it's a training exercise. It's like, we're not getting too carried away by beating Man United's, youth and reserves, albeit we played very well. And equally not going to get too upset about losing a game either. It was a brilliant start to Wrexhamania.
Yeah, it was really, really good, and I thought that was, like I said, that college had that small town feel, sort of a Wrexham feel. I said in one of the videos, had that kind of like Franklin Street, and everyone was there, all this sea of Wrexham. Then we get to LA, which you know well, and I asked you off mic for some recommendations, and politely you said LA is absolutely huge. And it's going to be difficult to do. And then I got there and I realised this is massive. So we were a little bit more spread out. But what was it like for you? You had your wife there and friends there and other actors, and it was in LA. I couldn't work out if someone was just stylish or famous. That was my issue in LA. It was is that person famous? Should I know who they are, or do they just dress really well?
No, sure. That was really fun for me because I've lots of friends out here who have got so into the whole thing, and the group that I brought were basically hand-picked friends who are the ones that text me during games and that are up early watching games and following. So that was really cool. And yes, LA is massive. It was brilliant to have all the boys here and to have them go and visit various different landmarks. I felt quite surreal seeing them, as you say, on the Hollywood Boulevard and going to Beverly Hills and all these different bits and pieces. I mean, it's so big that really it's difficult to you can't even there are bus tours and stuff here, but everything's so spread out that it's hard for people to get a sense of how everything fits together. So, as you said, I think as I said to you, you said, can you recommend things? I said, well, I don't. Where are you staying? Because I might give you a bar that's an hour and a half drive away.
I was like, I'm in LA, and you were like, that's not helpful.
That's
as much as you think it is. That's not helping.
It's sort of the equivalent of when people from over here are like, oh, I'm coming to Wales, so maybe I'll come to Wrexham, and you're like, where? And they're like, the Gower Peninsula, and you're like, that's quite far away. You're going to struggle to get there. With that much ease.
One of the subplots that's come out of the tour, mainly because I think we were one of the first to share that picture of the meal that the team had before they flew out, and we were thinking, is that Brian Flynn in the background, or is that just a sort of a very nice, polite-looking old man? And then we sort of did realise it was Brian Flynn, and then it got announced that he's an ambassador for the tour. What can you tell us about how Flynn he was on the tour, and is there a role for him to keep him involved? He's obviously such a fountain of knowledge.
Yeah. Well, he was brilliant. I mean, first of all, the role as ambassador is partly for sort of the fan zones and for we had to do presentations with Manchester United, and when we're giving them a gift, they're giving us a gift. Their gift came in much fancier boxes than our gift, much to Rob's chagrin. So we need to get good boxes. So like, all right, well, we'll get there eventually. We need to win a few Champions Leagues first before we get fancy embossed boxes for our gifts. And Brian knows everybody. So as and when we were meeting with Chelsea or with Manchester United, there's always someone there who he's worked with, played with, done, because of course, he worked at Everton and all over the place over the years, Burnley, he's got lots and lots of connections. And so, he was as much there to sort of show us how it was done on the kind of diplomatic role as anything else. But also he's brilliant with all the players because his speed, he remembers everybody's name instantaneously, like I've noticed. He has that really great quality of just, the set. It goes in as soon as he's in. I introduced him to lots of my friends. He absolutely remembered everybody's names. He's got an incredible fount of hilarious and bizarre stories from his time in football, and the players just loved having him around because he's done it. And they really respect that. This is a guy with 66 Wales caps, and we had a little presentation on the first night in North Carolina. We had a little night where there was a presentation about this is North Carolina, this is what it is, this is where you are, this is the university, these are the things you understand. And then Phil had Kyle and George, our analysts, knock up a kind of scouting video on Brian, which was great fun, just showing some of his goals and things like that. And he came out and he was just being very funny about, he's one of only 2 Welshmen to ever score against Brazil, and he scored a header against Brazil. So there's a lot of jokes about how a man of his stature could rise like a salmon and score a header against the greatest football team of all time. And yeah, it was great fun. He was a brilliant addition. In terms of going forward, I think, he still lives in Burnley. He'll always be welcome at the club. I don't think he's, to be honest, looking for a more complicated and ongoing role. But, I think he's a brilliant addition to the mix this summer. And so I hope we'll see lots more of him.
Yes, fingers crossed. I love some of the little bits we saw on the Triple A's and everything of the staff shootout. I thought was great. I mean, Phil, obviously, Ben had to say Phil's penalty purely for the bragging rights. And like you say, that story there about Brian, we just want to see more of that. We love hearing stories like that we don't get to see. And I guess, I think I saw you walking through the airport when I was going on a flight to LA. You guys were going to Denver and then LA.
Yes.
On that early morning. That was very early after the game.
Very early.
And
yes, I waved it. I thought I waved at you, and you looked you looked slightly zombie-like. You just looked at me with a sort of face of pure pain.
I was thinking, like, I feel like I looked at him and he didn't. I feel like I just saw.
I think we both. I think we were
Right.
both operating on like a 30-second delay.
Yes.
So I think you saw me and waved, and I didn't see you, and then I waved at you, and by that stage, you were already lost as well.
I was already probably fuming then. So you were chatting to some of the players. Did you? I know you know a lot of these players. We haven't changed a lot. We'll get on to maybe the squad a little bit. But what came out of the tour for me was the elevation of players like a Ryan Barnett, like a Sam Dolby. Did you get to sort of elevate your relationships with them off the pitch in terms of just getting to know them a little bit better away from the grind of just week-to-week training and games and all that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, it was nice. I mean, I'm always trying to strike that balance of not being too much of a fan, because I sort of love. I'm only, as I said a few times to you, I'm only a short time out of just being a football fan, and so getting to spend time with everybody is fun. It's always quite fun, it's exciting to I'm friends with footballers. But I think it was, as I said earlier, the great thing about this trip in a way was the capacity that we had for just bringing everybody together, getting to do lots of things, getting the activities they did together. You'd see these little combinations of people that I don't always necessarily sort of put together, like who's going off like to Venice Beach. It's Jacob Mendy, Sam Dolby, Ryan Barnett, and sort of Callum McFadden are all getting a taxi to go down to Venice Beach to have a look at all the sort of skateboarders down there and people playing basketball. And you're like, well, that's a combination that I don't know necessarily. Lots you get a lot of. One thing that's, I think, incredible about a squad is there's no cliques. There's no like, these guys sit on this table, these guys sit on this table. There's people who are particularly close and very good friends, but they do seem remarkably collectively on good terms, but what you do have is you have the cars, right? You have so and so picks up, Billy Waters picks up Ben Tozer and whoever it is on the way into training, or you have the Manchester crew. There's like Andy Cannon, Rob Langton, whoever it is. They all drive in together. But the nice thing about the tour is you don't need to do that. You don't need to do the cars. So you're all together and you're all having a good time. I had in Chapel Hill, my room in the hotel was opposite Rob Langton and Andy Cannon, and I will go on record and say that they do a lot of singing. In the shower,
really?
In the shower and out of it, you can hear it. Yes, yeah. There was a lot of Lewis Capaldi.
Lewis Capaldi. I was going to say, are they rocking the Taylor Swift as well? Lewis Capaldi. There you go.
Yeah.
Could you tell which one was better? Could you tell who it was, or could you just hear?
I could hear Andy very, very loudly at one stage, but they were doing. It was I can't remember what the song is called, but for the chorus it was Andy, and then for the chorus they both came in together, and unsurprisingly they can't hit the high notes.
I'm not surprised. I guess one of the other final points on the tour for me was, I got to spend a lot of time. I just went as a fan. I wasn't there in a media capacity or a podcast, and so I just went as a fan, was in with the fans. And I think the big frustration was, and I know that, again, you'll probably say this was out of the club's hands, nothing we could have done, but I felt a little bit that I was there in all these jerseys, and a lot of these fans haven't been able to get the jerseys. Is there a sense that the club could have made a hell of a lot of money if you'd have just had thousands more shirts to take over there, which I know is not what the club's got, but it would have been... Is that something to look at down the line, if either US distribution or something like that?
I think we're always looking to improve. I mean, the challenge this year is, and I think this has been well covered. We ordered what we would describe as an absolute ton of shirts, and we sold them all in 2 days. So we're still playing catch up in terms of, we had a conversation collectively whenever it was. Well, it would have been sort of October last year, because that's the lead-in time for the creation of the shirts. And we were like, we've seen the documentaries come out now. It seems pretty popular. This is what we sold last year. This is what we've done. And, we were like, right, well, 35,000 seems like a good estimate for how many we'd shift. That's more than most championship clubs. That's probably, not far off some bottom-end Premier League clubs in terms of sales. So yeah, I mean, the answer is next time we're going to order a lot more shirts, and we'll try and get them. I mean, I think a US distribution hub is going to be pretty key. And yeah, we're working on all those plans now, because like I say, it's usually in advance of next season we start thinking about it all in earnest. In kind of October is when we have to lock things up in.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how giddy was Rob to get that black kit finally?
I think a 9. I will say. I mean, you've got to leave room for winning titles or anything like that.
Sure.
But I think a 9 is pretty close. Yes, I hand delivered them to him myself, and he was very excited.
Nice, and we need to clear this up. I think with a lot. Rob's been in the headlines a lot. Rob McElhenney's house. What is it like? Where is Paul Mullin staying? Not quite what's happened there, is it? I think it's been misconstrued.
I think Rob said in an interview he's going to stay with us, and people took that as he's going to stay literally in Rob and Caitlin's house, and that offer was on the table. But I think Paul was, just basically understandably wanted to use this time to kind of have a bit of basically. Here's the thing: I wouldn't want to stay in my boss's house for 10 days, 2 weeks, and I think that he, was very grateful for the offer, and I'm sure he's going to see lots of Rob while he's in LA. But I think was basically just wanted a bit of space to himself, really, where he could concentrate on his recovery and R&R and all that kind of thing, rest and relaxation, rather than Rob and Ryan. This often gets confused now. So yeah, he's here. He's in LA, and I think he's got some friends out here with him from back home that have come to kind of keep him from being lonely and keep an eye on him and help him out. And hopefully his recovery, by the end of this week or start of next week, he'll be able to come home.
Oh, nice. That's a positive update, because Brian Flynn dropped the bombshell on somebody in the fan zone: 4 broken ribs and a punctured lung. And I said last week, I've never known so many Google searches in Wrexham for how long does it take to recover from a punctured lung. Of course.
Well, we all become a thoracic surgery expert briefly in that window.
And Google is terrible because it just gives you the worst case scenario. So it's like, you will never breathe again. Your lung is gone. And one American texted me and said he was in I think in Philadelphia they had like a tunnel pass or a tunnel club or some kind of. And so one of them was offering up their lung to... I'm not sure it's the same as a kidney. I don't know if you can just offer your lungs up to...
I don't think you can just swap them in and out.
I don't think that's how it works, but very nice gesture nonetheless.
Very, very kind gesture. Yeah, I mean, we've had... So there's a few players in the squad who've had the same kind of injury over the years. So they, have all offered their advice and their this, that and the other. But, ultimately... It's different for everybody. People recover at different rates. Miles has actually got pretty remarkable powers of recovery over the couple of years that I've known him. So, yeah, as I say, really, it's the challenge is that he can't travel until he's given the all clear, and that basically is all lung related rather than rib related. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they're going to scan him again start of next week, and should be, all things being as we expect them to be, he'll get stuck in the old plane and come back. And
the COP redevelopment, then that's another issue of just what's going on. a lot of Chinese whispers of, has it started? Has it not? When's the floodlight coming down? You're much more privy to these things, so we don't need any Chinese whispers on here. What is going on? Are we behind? Are we, what's happening there?
Well, so as everyone knew, we wanted to start on June the 1st, and basically what has happened is, it's like, so basically the two things have held up the start, which are unexpected turns of events that basically you run into these sorts of things. One is so you've seen the last floodlight is just, I think, they started putting it up today, so it'll be ready in time for Saturday. The challenge with that was that it turned out that where the base needed to go, there was a big kind of sewage confluence area where various sewers combined.
Right.
So we had to move it, basically. So that's the thing that it just takes time. You've got to get permits, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and all those things. Everybody's been very helpful with that. The council's been great about all that kind of stuff. But it's just, it literally is like there is a amount of time that goes into stuff that you just don't expect. You can't see, you don't know it's there. And so that was a big one. So that's why, and we had to do the floodlights before we could start the work and everything else. We also had a electrical substation that supplies the flats over the other side that needed to be moved, or does need to be moved. So it's just all taking a little bit longer than we had hoped. And you also, there's just, those are the two things that have prevented the start. So it's not dissimilar to, I'd use the analogy that Meg and I have been trying to buy a house, and we found somewhere we loved over here. Everything was going great, all going to plan, and then we did structural engineers, looked at it, and they found problems with the foundations. So you have, with the best will in the world, you have everything is sort of, we're ready to go. We're just having to move various things around the place, which take a bit longer. So, I think there'll be a more substantial update coming out soon in terms of when we're expecting to start, when we're expecting to complete, and all that kind of stuff. But it's just you run into these things that you have no control over. I mean, that's the problem. I think sometimes people feel as though we have money. We're very lucky as a football club that we have lots of money, and that makes you omnipotent and you can do whatever you want. And it just is. There are things that are outside the scope that you just require time for, basically.
Other development news then, because this is what Rob and Ryan, they came on the podcast, and I'm sure people have heard that by now. I don't need to plug that one. Training ground, that's been going on in terms of just figuring out the site. Again, we're talking about figuring out sites, figuring out what's going on. That's obviously the next step. We've talked recently on the pod about the academy, but training ground, any update there for us?
I mean, essentially, training ground, I think, has suffered a little bit from the COP slippage. So because a lot of time and energy has had to go into that, and I feel like I said this to people. I mean, I think I've said this to Shropshire Reds supporters group, or I can't even know if I said it to you a while ago, because everything is, again, time is just taking longer than we would like it to. We think there's a site we like the look of. There's lots of things to like about it. It's just getting all our ducks in a row, really. I mean, it's one area where we are, it's an unideal situation, because we are occasionally at Colliers. Colliers has become, we've had there's been a slight change in the policy at Colliers, which has been good for us. It's gone more in our direction, which is great in terms of their use, how they feel about people using the pitches outside of kind of Wales, different age groups and things. So that's good, that's great. But we still definitely absolutely want our own spot. And my hope is that this season we'll start to see some really kind of serious movement on that. I mean, ironically, when we go into off season, it's our busiest time, and especially when you get promoted, there's an unbelievable amount of stuff that has to be done to kind of transfer the business across into the EFL model, in terms of paperwork, in terms of we have to redo everybody's contracts. All the players' contracts get redone and get set. I mean, they stay at the same terms, but you just have to put them all into a new system. You have to do this, that, and the other. There's a huge amount of EFL. Their kind of standard operating procedure is very different to the National League. So, yeah, I'm hoping that once we get in, once we settle down, and we get sort of back to it, it will be be a lot easier. It's funny for us. The off season it's always the period at which there's no football. Everyone gets bored and restless and angry. And we get shouted at a lot more than we do during the season.
We're just incredibly demanding. We want everything super cheap, and we want a new training ground, a new stand, all the best players. And,
listen.
Why aren't you giving it to us? Basically, is what we're asking.
I completely recognise people. We obviously prices have gone up, and there's various different bits this and the other. And I know I'm never going to expect people to welcome prices going up. That's understandably a frustration. And actually this season it's been, obviously last year we had the whole sort of Wrexham lager farrago where someone saw a Carling poster up in the stadium and basically cooked up a whole story. I mean, the thing that I do really enjoy is some of the transfer gossip in the know stuff blows my mind, because we're often thwarted going for a player I've never heard of, or we've had a bid turned down, or we've done this, that and the other, I would say basically until a player is in the building, no one ever has an idea. I often see someone as like, okay, it's nailed on when someone has seen one of the guys, in the car park or shaking hands with Fleur or doing whatever it is. Then that's pretty accurate. But a lot of the other stuff is, I don't know where it comes from.
You're pretty. You're all pretty good. You've kind of sewn up all the holes. There's not many leaks come out the club, which
only
is pretty good.
Three or four people know what's going on until right. Literally until they are in the building. At which point it's like, right, we now need to tell people.
Are you one of those 3 or 4 people? Are you in that kind of inner sanctum? Are you? Wow, that must feel amazing. That must feel immense power that you have there.
Huge power. Well, yeah, I mean, listen, it's purely because, with all of these things, I'm on the board, so when it comes to a case of like this, we need to sanction a signing, we need to do this, we need to do that, then that will come to me then, and I also will talk to Phil. Phil loves to canvass opinion, and my opinion is worth absolutely nothing, but bless him, he will ask me my opinion on players, and will make suggestions of like, okay, this is a guy we're looking at, watch these tapes and see what you think. I think it's a lot more of it is, obviously much more important is Steve Parkin and Dave Jones and Aidan and whoever it may be. Like, what do you guys think of this? Kyle and George, the analysts, it's very much done in a kind of collective. These are who we think. Who do we think, and an opinion will coalesce on a certain player, and around then that's when I'll get told about it, and then if it gets serious, then Sean gets involved. Basically, that's when it gets to a point of like, right now, so to take Will Boyle for example, because we can talk about him very easily. Yeah, it was. There are a number of left-sided centre-back. Left-sided centre-back was something that Phil wanted from the jump. And, there are a few that were looked at. There are a few different names that are bandied around. But Will actually, funny enough, happened very quickly in terms of it was actually, Will Boyle's become available. Like this, he's great. We should absolutely go and get him. And it really was in the space of sort of probably 24 hours that his name first got mentioned, and then it was like, well, let's get him. Like he fits the bill. He's perfect. He's on a free. He's available. He fits within our wage structure. He's worked with Ben before. Ben says he's a good guy. Phil's spoken to him. He likes him, and then it just goes from there.
I've got 3 more, but one very quickly. Jordan Tunnicliffe, he was next to you basically in these fan zones, signing the autographs.
Yeah.
Obviously, it hasn't come out and said anything, but how is he doing? Because backs are typically not the best injury to have.
Yeah, so actually he got a scan over here. While we were in the US, we decided to take advantage of some of the medical capabilities they have here, and he got a scan here, and they feel. And by they, I mean Kev, him, the collective are feeling he's not far away, which is good. He's such a great guy, Tunny. He's such a fantastic ambassador for the club. He's a great player. He's a great teammate. So, we all want him back as soon as possible. But his attitude, and again, it pervades this squad. It's something that is really, I know you guys have talked about it on the podcast before, and it's something that I think everyone in Wrexham appreciates. But like, this is just a squad of really good people who have really good attitudes. They've got great. They're just, they collectively are pretty extraordinary together, and they all say that. Over the course, you mentioned earlier about getting a chance to talk to players and chatting with lots of different ones. JJ, who's been with us for a while, and Fordy, who's a bit newer, and Barney, who's even newer. They just all are like, I just can't believe what a good group this is. There's lots of young dads. There's lots of people whose kids like to play together. They're just very, very close knit, and it's a great thing to see. They also here's a good tidbit for you that I enjoyed. They play every away game, and they played a lot on this trip as well. They play this game, that I know as Werewolf, but they just call Wolves. And it's sometimes people know it as Mafia. It's a really fun game. It's where you kind of sit. I don't know if you've ever come across this.
I clearly don't have enough friends to play these games. Rich is never here. He's always in Japan or somewhere. He's never here, so I got to play. Explain to us Mafia, Wolves, Werewolf.
Werewolf. So what it is, you all sit around in a big circle. You have one sort of game master who runs the game, and they pick. So everyone is a villager. You all live in a big village together, and they'll pick 2 people to be the werewolves. Now, the way it works is that you basically like, right, everybody go to sleep. Everyone puts their heads down, close their eyes, not allowed to look. Werewolves wake up. The 2 people who are werewolves look up. They see each other, and they go like, right, who are you going to kill in the night? And they all point, at Rob Langton, for example. So I remember that with our group, there's so many people. They have 3 werewolves, and it was the werewolves. The one I was watching was like Jordan Davies, Ollie Palmer, and I think, who was the other one? Andy Cannon? I can't remember. Anyway, so yeah, it's like werewolves wake up. They all wake up. They'll point to someone that they want to kill, and then right, werewolves go back to sleep. Everybody wake up. This person, Max Cleworth, is dead, and Max is like out of the game basically. Then everybody else debates. It's like, have you seen that show? What's it called? Traitors. Have you seen that? The thing with Davina McCall. It's that. Right. Okay, it's basically that game. That would have been a much easier explanation. I forgot
that would have been. I'm a big fan that they could. Most of these players you see with top level players put headphones on, play FIFA, go to sleep, whatever. And yet Wrexham's lads are preparing for a 111 point season, record points, playing Werewolf.
But it's a huge bonding experience. I mean, basically everybody was playing it, and Colin and Amy and Gemma from the media team were playing as well, and like coaching staff and medical staff. Like everybody's, there's no delineation where it's like, sorry, this is the first team, and they get treated differently, and you guys are only on the media team, or you guys are only this, or you guys are only that. It's a great collective atmosphere, which I love.
So we've got one squad question, one documentary question, and one MK Dons question. The squad one,
Great.
I mean, you'll no doubt you'll just agree with me when I say this, but we won't get into it. But to clear up, I've seen a lot of things on Twitter about, Luke Young came home and he'll be leaving. What I will say on that, personal reasons, and we don't need to get into what those personal reasons are. But what I would say, and you'll echo this, I'm sure, and maybe we'll see a bit of it in the doc as well. We've had Fordy's had, personal issues. James Jones, we know about with his kid. I think Parkinson, I mean, it's easy to be like, we need to play and we need to win, and you all need to kind of suck it up and play. And Jordan, obviously, in the first series, people saw. I think actually Parkinson's proved himself to be nothing's more important than family, and go out and take as much time as you need. And I thought Luke's obviously the latest one, but I thought that's been that makes me appreciate him even more, because it's easy to just be like, well, I'm under pressure, I need to win, I need you all. Actually say no, go take as much time as you need. And all of those lads, I think they appreciate it because they're playing for him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's as you say, obviously the old adage of football's a matter of life and death is much more important than that, all that kind of thing. I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, ultimately, and it's also a very well-worn football cliche that's like, something that puts things in perspective. For all of us, winning games for Wrexham is incredibly important, and seeing this football club thrive and all that kind of thing is massively important. But the thing that I've really learnt over the last couple of years of being on the other side of the rope is just it's a lot of human beings. It's lots of people who can have they can have a bad day. They can have difficult things happen to them. Obviously Ben very unexpectedly lost his dad very recently, which is terribly sad.
Right.
And I think his response to that has been, to a certain extent, is like, right, I'm going to throw myself into my foot. I'm going to concentrate on work. Go and it's a great way to just keep busy and keep away from that kind of thing. Other people need time. It's very easy for us to forget. It goes back to that thing of the sort of, I say sometimes people think because we have money we're omnipotent and we can do whatever. It's like the reality is life doesn't work like that. The challenges of real life will insert themselves again and again. And actually I think that's the stuff that, when it comes to the documentary, that the human element of it is the bit that's interesting to me. I mean, I with the greatest of love to them in the world, I don't really care about the Rob and Ryan of it all, but maybe that's because I'm close to that and that seems familiar to me. But the much more compelling stuff is watching people, living their lives and having their challenges and overcoming those challenges. I think that's the thing that really is important in life. And I think Phil recognises that, and the squad respects that he recognised that it's not, he's not someone who's going to sacrifice the well-being of one of his players in order to get an extra 6 points a season.
No, and I've seen plenty of managers higher up, who I don't need to name, who definitely would sacrifice in the short term to win. Documentary then, we saw the trailer on the big screen at Chapel Hill, very exciting. And some of the people we're going to see in it, I mean, Neil Roberts was in it, his daughter Mia was in the trailer, who's in the women's team. Millie, who people know, is in it with Ryan, and she was out in Philadelphia, and there's going to be a few different faces from the first series.
Yeah.
People, amazing to me, the amount of people out there who were saying that they've managed to avoid the results of last season and kind of not know the exact. Obviously, they knew about promotion and things, but didn't know the exact ups and downs that they'll be able to sort of see. Anything in this series that you're particularly excited to see again, or kind of do you think there's going to be that extra spike that is going to be even more so?
I do think that I do think that there will be. I think it's going to be bigger than season one. I think ironically, obviously the ending of season one was devastating for all of us, but for the American viewing public, I think it was, it's like crack. It's the ultimate, to see all these people that you fall in love with crestfallen, and then to come back for the second season. Obviously, I don't know whether you've seen the poster for season two. It's quite sort of triumphant.
No, is it out there? I have seen it.
You will have seen that they're like cartoon with Rex.
I'm with you. I'm being right. And Rex is like absolutely stacked.
Absolutely
and the sheep
yoked.
And the sheep are absolutely
very
on
buff
something.
As well.
Yeah, buff.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
But yeah, it's already got a bit of a like, here we go. Like I think they're not hiding behind. I think they've understood that like a lot of people will know what the result was. I mean, for me, what I'm looking forward to is I've seen a few bits and pieces of early on, because quite often what happens is I get sent the episodes early on to check they've not misidentified anyone or done. You have bits of things like in one episode they're talking a lot about Solihull Moors, us playing Solihull Moors, and then you see a bunch of Dorking players go into the stadium in the background. I'm like, well, those you've combined the two there. I mean, that's just an editor over here that doesn't know, wouldn't recognise the club badges necessarily. So there's things like that I look at. But so I've seen there's the first women's episode I saw is fantastic, because I think what I love about it is that it is, as I say, I like the humanity and the real life element of things. And with the women's team, you've got that in spades, because that they were an amateur team at that stage. So 90% of their time is they're doing their actual jobs. So you're seeing people in their jobs, and then seeing how football transports them from those jobs, takes them away from a thing that is less glamorous and less fun. This is brilliant. Anyway, I love that episode. I'm really excited for people to see that. But the thing the last three, I want to see Notts County. I want to see Boreham Wood. I even now, in retrospect, want to see Halifax.
I mean, I just really want to see that Foster penalty save in as many different
glorious
slow-mos and
that's it. It's
just everything about it.
Having pored over that footage for a long time, I want to see it all again. But just fresh footage, because I've watched the BT video, I've watched the AAA, I've watched I've looked at everything I can find on YouTube. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it on the big fancy documentary cameras.
I just want an extended cut where it's like 100 episodes and every single game and every single team talk, because I would just that's like crack to Wrexham.
Yeah.
Because obviously I think if you're a Wrexham fan in the UK, you've maybe had the fortune of going to the game, so it's cool watching it back. But you want the behind the scenes, so it can never be enough. If it's 20 episodes, if it's 40 episodes, probably still going to be something that doesn't make it. That's the beauty of it, I guess.